Welcome to the Women Who Heal podcast. I'm Natalie Ryan Hebert, and I know firsthand the journey of struggling with PMDD. Diagnosed in 2015, I realised I'd been living with it for most of my life, likely since my teenage years. But everything changed in 2018. Through deep yet rapid subconscious therapy, I was able to heal my deep emotional wounds, and all my symptoms disappeared. It felt like I discovered something no doctor ever could have told me, that healing PMDD is possible, not through medication, not through hysterectomy, but through healing trauma. Since then, I've helped hundreds of women around the world through the Red Tent program. I'm here to share their stories of transformation and to remind you that there is hope. Hello, I'm your host, Natalie Ryan Hebert, and today I'm going to share with you my personal story about how I came to develop the Red Tent program through my own healing journey of PMDD. So a little about me before we begin. I live in Copenhagen, in Denmark, but you can probably tell from my mixed accent that I'm Australian. I've also lived in London for about 9 years, so I feel like a citizen of the world in many ways, but I'm pretty firmly rooted in Copenhagen now with my kids and my husband. I work with all sorts of issues using rapid transformational therapy, and it can help with so many things: weight release, money blocks, confidence, fear of flying, addictions, phobias, basically anything. It's a really fantastic therapy, but the area that really means a lot to me is helping women with premenstrual mood issues, particularly premenstrual dysphoric disorder, also known as PMDD. And while I never turn anyone away, that's the area that I feel most drawn to focusing on. PMDD affects 1 in 20 women. So it's actually fairly prevalent. Of those, it's believed that 15 to 30% will attempt suicide at some point, which makes it quite dangerous. It truly hijacks a woman's mind. It's like being Jekyll and Hyde. Much more than garden variety PMS, it is debilitating. The common symptoms of PMDD, and this is how you would get a diagnosis, involve tracking your cycle for 3 months and noticing symptoms such as mood swings, irritability or anger, increased conflicts in your personal relationships, feelings of anxiety, depression. These symptoms are very strong and can significantly disrupt a woman's life. Depressed moods and feelings of hopelessness are common, along with a lot of negative self-talk. Anxiety and tension also play a big role, feeling constantly on edge, snappy at everyone, especially those closest to you, like your partner. There's often a decreased interest in usual activities, difficulty concentrating, and a lack of energy. Lethargy, hypersomnia, or insomnia can take over, and there's a pervasive sense of being overwhelmed or out of control, or kind of taken over by something that isn't really you. This clinical description doesn't even begin to capture what many women refer to as Hell Week. For women with PMDD, it's truly like being possessed by a dark, depressed spirit, something unrecognizable as yourself but completely consuming. It can feel like a tsunami building inside of you, eventually crashing down in a destructive outburst directed at your partner, kids, or even yourself. And then, of course, what follows is often guilt, worthlessness, and thoughts of they'd be better off without me. And this is where the risk of suicidal ideation comes in. In the moment, the anger and sadness feel completely justified. It's only a few days later, when your period arrives, that you realize how warped your thinking had been. PMDD hijacks your mind, twisting your perception of reality. It's as if the emotional pain inside you is determined to prove itself true. Everything gets filtered through that lens. If your husband is late home from work, you think, oh, he mustn't want to spend time with me. If your kids leave the kitchen messy, it feels like nobody respects me. These are just examples. Every woman's experience is different, but the common thread is how PMDD distorts and amplifies negativity. Unfortunately, because PMDD is so poorly understood, effective treatment options are scarce. Most women are left experimenting with different birth control methods or antidepressants, which often don't help and come with side effects like loss of libido or an inability to orgasm. As if life wasn't already hard enough, that gets taken away too. And insomnia, when you're not sleeping properly, everything is compounded. It's no wonder many women reach a breaking point, opting for a full hysterectomy to stop their cycle altogether. For some, it's a choice between that or suicide. I've had clients come to me at this stage, approved for a hysterectomy and desperate for relief, finding me through Instagram or word of mouth as a last resort. For many, the Red Tent program that I've developed for PMDD has been a lifeline, offering hope and transformation when nothing else worked. It's deeply validating for these women to feel seen, heard, and understood for the first time. It's such a lonely, isolating, and confusing experience. You feel like you're dealing with two completely different people within yourself. This is something very close to my heart because I've been through it personally. About 15 years ago, I was completely lost. I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I couldn't find anyone who could help. Doctors weren't always helpful. I remember one male doctor in particular who was so dismissive. I was sitting there in floods of tears, and he just stared at me stone-faced and cold. I walked out of that office feeling hopeless, like I was just a lost cause. Because I've been through it, and because I've come out on the other side, I'm deeply passionate about helping other women find their way out. It really is like being in hell. That's the only way I can describe it. For most of my life, I've been a confident, positive, and happy person. That's my nature. But during those few days every month, I was a completely different person. I kept it secret out of shame. Only those very close to me knew what I was going through. These days brought debilitating mood swings that plunged me into deep sadness, worthlessness, and uncontrollable rage. I would make mountains out of molehills, blowing the smallest things out of proportion. And all of this was brought on by the premenstrual hormonal shift. It had been happening to me for over a decade. Month after month, I dealt with it, and it was utterly exhausting. Every month, I'd think, this time I'm going to make it. I feel good. I've got this. But then, inevitably, something would snap. I'd find myself bawling my eyes out in my bedroom over what seemed like nothing later. I knew this wasn't just normal PMS. I even shared my experience in one of my mother's groups, thinking, maybe people just don't talk about it. Maybe this is something everyone deals with. But their reactions told me otherwise. They said, my God, that sounds horrific. And that's when I realized something was truly wrong. I started questioning myself. Do I have a personality disorder? Am I bipolar? What is this? And I became consumed with Googling, trying to find out what was happening to me. Finally, I stumbled upon premenstrual dysphoric disorder. For the first time, the symptoms matched what I was experiencing. I went to my GP, who asked me to track my symptoms over a few months. Based on my records, I was officially diagnosed with PMDD. The solution they offered was Zoloft, an antidepressant. I was instructed to take it for the 14 days leading up to my period each month. And honestly, I hated it. The medication didn't really help me. Like I mentioned earlier, it completely switched off my libido. It took away my ability to orgasm, one of the many lovely side effects of SSRIs. It also stripped me of my creativity, dulled my emotions, and left me feeling like a walking zombie. It was like slapping a Band-Aid on a wound that was crying out to be healed. I knew there was something deeper going on, something that needed addressing, but at that point I didn't know what or how. Month after month, this was impacting my marriage. I'd already been through one marriage that was irreparably damaged by this. Back then, I didn't even know what was wrong with me. But this time I was determined not to let it happen again. My husband, who's the most wonderful, respectful, and loving man, sat me down and said, "You have to master this thing." And at that moment, I wanted to punch him in the face. He had no idea what it felt like to go through this. But later, when I sat with his words, I realized he was right. It wasn't my fault that I had this, but it was my responsibility to find a way through it. No one else was going to do it for me. I'll never forget standing in front of the mirror and saying to myself, "No one is coming to save you." It was a pivotal moment because I realized It had to be me. And that's a message I now share with all of my clients. I tell them, I'm your guide, but you're the hero in this story. You are the one who will rescue yourself. And that's exactly what happens. They find their own strength and transformation. Not long after that realization, I was watching something on YouTube when an ad came on for Marissa Peer, the founder of Rapid Transformational Therapy. Usually I'd be counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, skip ad. But this time I couldn't stop watching. I didn't even end up watching the video I'd originally clicked on because I was so captivated by Marissa. You know that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. That's exactly what happened. She started talking about the power of the mind. And while the concepts weren't entirely new to me, I've studied psychology and was already a certified stress coach, her way of explaining things made it feel like a revelation. She has this gift for breaking down complex principles into something so simple and obvious that you wonder how you didn't already know it. So I went down this kind of Marissa Peer rabbit hole, consuming everything I could find about her and RTT. And in that moment, I felt it deep in my core. This is my calling. This is what I've been waiting for. I made the decision quite quickly to train with Marissa and become certified in RTT. From the very first session, I knew I'd found the key not only to my own healing, but also to helping others. It gave me the tools to finally release myself from the grip of PMDD and reclaim my life. And I had tried so many things. I felt like I'd tried everything. My husband used to joke that I could sell my pee for $5 a glass because it was so full of vitamins from all the supplements I was taking. I tried vitamin B6, magnesium, calcium, Agnus castus, every herb and concoction that claimed it could help balance hormones. I cut out sugar, I drastically reduced caffeine, I barely drank alcohol, followed a clean, nutritious diet, I practiced yoga, did mindfulness exercises, went to therapy sessions, you name it, I probably gave it a go. But nothing worked. I still felt like I was trapped in a cycle of emotional chaos, and it was so exhausting, as I'm sure many of you can understand. Interestingly, when I decided to train in RTT, it wasn't because I thought it would help with my PMDD. Honestly, I didn't make that connection at first. I just wanted to learn what Marissa Peer was teaching so I could help other people. At the time, I thought PMDD was this separate, untouchable monster I'd just have to live with. Looking back, though, it makes so much sense. Women with PMDD often share similar traits. We tend to be highly empathetic, sensitive, and creative. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I've found that many of my clients are artists, healers, nurses, early school years teachers, yoga instructors, people who naturally pour themselves into giving and helping others. It's the archetype of the wounded healer, and that's exactly what I was. During my RTT training, something remarkable happened. I was doing the work, listening to Marissa's recordings, practicing on myself, having practice sessions with my peers. And one month, my period arrived without the usual chaos. At first, I thought it was a fluke. I remember saying to my husband, hey, that was a good month, wasn't it? No emotional breakdowns, no dark hole. I didn't lose my mind this time. And he was cautiously optimistic, like, yeah, it was nice to not lose you for a few days. But then the same thing happened the next month and the month after that. My period would arrive, but the chaos didn't. I was calm and happy and grounded. I felt like my real self all the time. It's now been 7 years without symptoms. What's fascinating is I didn't go into RTT with the intention of fixing PMDD. I didn't even have a session specifically about it. What I learned, though, and this is the key to understanding PMDD, is that the hormonal shift acts like a truth serum or a magnifying glass. It puts you in direct contact with any unresolved emotional pain you're carrying. So while I didn't target PMDD directly, the work I was doing in RTT, building confidence as a therapist, healing past hurts, addressing limiting beliefs, resolved the deeper emotional roots that the hormonal shift was amplifying. And this is what no doctor ever told me. They treated the symptoms, but they didn't address the underlying causes. RTT helped me access and heal those buried emotional wounds, and that's what has made the difference. And this is such a rich and meaningful way to look at it. The analogy of the hormonal shift being like a thinning of the veil is really so on point. It really does feel like the barriers that usually keep our deeper wounds at bay just dissolve, and suddenly you're face to face with everything that you've managed to bury. And I've come up with this metaphor, the box of pain. And for most of the month, that box stays tucked away, locked up tight. We function, we work, we parent, we love, we handle life as our adult selves. But during that premenstrual phase, when the hormonal veil thins, the box floats to the surface. It's like not only does the lid fly open, but we're almost forced to sit with it, the contents of that box. Unresolved childhood wounds, heartbreaks, insecurities, traumas just spill out and flood our whole bodies. It's raw, it's overwhelming, it's all-consuming. And the magnifying glass makes it impossible to look away. I used to say to my husband, the best way to describe this is it's like my blood has turned to tears. And I think that really captures the full body, chemical, emotional overwhelm of it all. And everyone's box of pain is different. That's why PMDD doesn't look the same for everyone. What's amazing though, and the part that I wish I could just shout from the rooftops, is this: PMDD isn't the enemy. It's not some incurable disease. It's the messenger. It's your body and mind working together to say, hey, there's something here that needs healing. Researchers believe women with PMDD have a heightened sensitivity to allopregnanolone, a neurosteroid that's derived from progesterone. But here's the thing, the sensitivity is the trigger, it's not the root cause. The root cause is what's inside that box. When you heal the contents of the box, when you process and release those stored pains, the hormonal magnifying glass doesn't have anything to amplify. That's why RTT was so transformative for me and why it is for others. It addresses the deeper emotional wounds and it clears out the box. Another analogy I talk about a lot is that a woman's monthly cycle is like the 4 seasons. Spring is the follicular phase. Right after your period ends, you feel fresh and renewed, like the buds of flowers beginning to bloom. Your energy picks up, you're optimistic, and the world feels full of possibilities again. Summer is ovulation, and this is the peak, your most radiant, confident, and magnetic self. You're energized, outward-facing, full of life. You feel sexy and ready to connect, just like ripe fruit on a tree. Autumn is the luteal phase. The leaves begin to turn. Energy starts to draw inward. It's a time of preparation and reflection, a slowing down. For women with unresolved pain, this is where the box rises and the magnifying glass comes out. Winter is the menstruation time, the shedding. Everything slows down to a halt. It's time for rest, introspection, and renewal, a chance to release both physically and emotionally. When you can embrace this cycle, you start to work with your body rather than against it. You tune in and ask yourself, where am I in my seasons? What does this phase need from me? For me, after healing my box of pain, the autumn time became a gentle nudge inward rather than a full-blown crisis. It's still introspective, but now it's a time to journal, reflect, and listen to myself. I honor the quiet, knowing that winter and its promise of renewal is just around the corner. And this is the message I want to share with every woman. You're not broken, and you don't have to live in constant fear of your own cycle. There is a way through, and it starts by healing what's inside that box. The thing is, people can't consciously see their subconscious wounds. When we're in the depths of PMDD, we're consumed by the emotions, but we often don't know where they're really coming from. This is why subconscious work is so powerful. It's like opening a door into the subconscious where those wounds, beliefs, and trapped emotions are stored, and finally bringing them into the light. What I've found with women who have PMDD is that while the individual stories differ, there are some common threads, one of the biggest being, I'm not enough. Whether it's I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, this belief seems to sit at the core of so many struggles. And the way this belief shows up in their lives is often unique to their personal story. For one woman, it might stem from childhood neglect or a sense of being invisible to her parents. For another, it might come from an overly critical parent or constant pressure to achieve. Some women have experienced trauma, emotional, physical, or sexual, that has left them feeling deeply unworthy or unsafe. The commonality is that their subconscious has been holding on to these beliefs as truths, and the hormonal shifts of the luteal phase act like a spotlight, illuminating them with unbearable clarity. So for some women, it's overwhelming sadness. For others, it's a sense of deep hopelessness, or they might feel like they can't even control their thoughts or emotions. It's all about what comes up for them during that phase. So when I begin a session, I focus on the emotional symptoms, because PMDD is just a manifestation of unresolved emotional pain, stress, or trauma. Because PMDD is just a manifestation of unresolved emotional pain, stress, or trauma that's being exacerbated by the hormonal fluctuation. It's often about the emotional overwhelm rather than the physiological symptoms themselves. I start by asking my clients to reflect on what really triggers them in the premenstrual phase. We go beyond the symptoms to uncover the deeper beliefs they hold about themselves and the world around them. For example, the anger might come from feeling like they're not being seen, heard, or respected. Or the sadness might stem from beliefs around being unworthy or fears of abandonment. These deep-seated beliefs often show up when the hormones start to shift and emotions begin to feel more intense. But the root cause is always rooted in past experiences and unresolved issues. Once we have identified the core emotional conflict, whether that's a belief in unworthiness, a fear of rejection, or deep shame, then I take the client through regression to uncover the memories where those beliefs were formed. From there, we can begin to reframe those memories, release the emotional charge from the body, and reprogram the subconscious mind to create new, more empowering beliefs. It is incredible how effective it is at identifying and healing these emotional wounds. And this leads to rapid shifts in how a person experiences their cycle. Because these deep emotional blocks are often linked to past trauma or negative programming, once we clear them, it can feel like the symptoms of PMDD just vanish. It's not a quick fix. It's about real emotional healing, which then allows the body to come back into balance naturally. In essence, I'm not treating the label of PMDD. We treat the underlying emotional wound that's making those symptoms so intense. And as a result, it's not uncommon for clients to come out of their sessions feeling lighter, more balanced, and free. I truly believe PMDD is a wake-up call. It's the body saying there's something here that needs healing. And while the journey can be painful, it's also an invitation, a chance to reconnect with yourself and reclaim your power. By the time clients reach me, they've usually exhausted every other avenue. They've tried diet changes, supplements, exercise, yoga, mindfulness, and everything else under the sun. And these things can help, and I always encourage a holistic approach, but what I've seen time and time again is the real root cause of PMDD lies in unresolved subconscious pain. Another way I explain it to clients is that PMDD is like a mirror for what's already inside you. Your body uses the hormonal shift as an opportunity to reflect back all the emotions, beliefs, and wounds you haven't yet healed. If you address what's in the box, if you heal the root, you no longer have to suffer. As I mentioned earlier, some women with PMDD appear to have heightened sensitivity to allopregnanolone, which interacts with the brain and nervous system. But even this sensitivity can be mitigated when the underlying emotional pain is addressed. I want to just talk about one of my clients. Her first RTT session was a turning point for her after addressing the deep-rooted emotional pain she'd been carrying for years. Alicia experienced a profound shift. It was like lifting a heavy weight off her shoulders. She said she felt like she was breathing for the first time in years. The guilt and the self-hatred that had been consuming her for so long started to lift. The transformation continued as she completed the program. By the end of 8 weeks, Alicia was able to get out of bed with ease, and she described feeling lighter physically and emotionally. Her relationship with her husband began to heal, as the underlying beliefs that were causing tension and disconnection started to dissolve. She was present with her daughter, no longer trapped in the cycle of guilt and despair. Most incredibly, Alicia no longer identifies with having PMDD. After working through the trauma and healing the emotional wounds that were exacerbated by her hormonal fluctuations, she was able to experience a new sense of balance in her life. She said she felt like she'd found herself again, someone she thought she'd lost forever. Her story is one of many that highlights the deep impact that emotional healing can have, not just on PMDD, but on every aspect of life. In this podcast, you'll get to hear the women's stories from their own mouths. Through RTT, Alicia found her way back to herself, not only healed from PMDD, but also from years of pain and trauma that had kept her stuck in a vicious cycle of emotional and physical suffering. And this is why I do this work. It's about giving women the tools to heal, to release what no longer serves them, to reclaim their power. And Alicia's story is just one example of how the Red Tent program can facilitate a complete transformation, enabling women to live the lives they were always meant to lead. It's stories like these that continue to inspire me every day and remind me why healing emotional wounds is so crucial, especially for women who are navigating hormonal shifts. By clearing the emotional blockages, women not only heal from the inside out, but begin to thrive in all areas of their lives. Thank you so much for joining me on Women Who Heal. If you found this episode helpful, I'd love it if you could take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your support helps us reach more women who might need this message of hope and healing. And don't forget to share this episode with anyone who could benefit from it, a friend, a sister, or someone in your community. You can follow me on Instagram at Natalie Ryan Hebert and at the Red Tent PMDD. I'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you there.